You can find me on Twitter at Half Court Hoops, YouTube Half Court Hoops, and I have a website, thebasketballplaybook.com. We're going to talk about building an offensive playbook. For the last 4 years, now at the varsity level, I've been running an offense for a team. This last year was with Heritage High School with Tilden Brill, who kind of did the same thing that Layson did, where he allowed me to have control over the offense. And then when we say control over the offense, I want to also clarify that it was more than just like, here you go. It was, hey, build your offensive system. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what our ideas are, what we like, what we don't like, and then go from there. So I am thankful for Layson and thankful for Tilden this year. So this will be more of me kind of talking about how I build my offensive playbook. And keep in mind, these are just ideas. These ideas in general should be taken with a grain of salt, and you should have your own system and your own belief and your own thought process when digesting all of this information. 90% of this you may not use, 99% you may not use. Just try to figure out something that you can take away from this for your own program. Don't copy what I do. Don't copy what other great coaches have done. Just be able to kind of take away some of these things for your own system and your own ideas, and just kind of spark your own ideas in your own mind and get creative. So with that being said, we're going to first talk about my favorite quote. It's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate. This is from Leif Babin. He wrote a book called Extreme Ownership with Jocko Willink, former Navy SEALs. It's a great leadership book. But this quote, I think in this, especially day and age where we have internet and everything getting thrown around, there's a lot of stuff that's being said. There's a lot of ideas and a lot of philosophies and a lot of information being shared out there. I try to stick to one or two things, especially during the season, for myself. And for me right now, it's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate. I don't feel like I've demanded a lot of my players in the past few years. I feel like I've kind of like trying to find the balance and the dichotomy of allowing them to play, allowing them to kind of be tightened up into our offensive system. And so I'm trying to get more, better at this, but it's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate. So, you can say a whole lot, you can do a whole lot, but at the end of the day, it's what you're going to demand from your team that you're going to kind of get out of. And I think from running an offensive system, that's extremely important. So your personnel is going to define your ideas. Systems mold around the best players. Think of Mike D'Antoni, right? Phoenix Suns, they were, pace and space. He really revolutionized the way the game of basketball is played, especially at the NBA level. But they did it for the most part around spread pick and roll, with three-point shooting. And then now he's coaching the Houston Rockets. They're still in the top 2 of offensive efficiency year in and year out, but it's more ISO. It's centered around one great player. So mold your system around your best players and figure out what you're going to do with them first. Find out quickly what you do well and always do that, and find out quickly what you don't do well and don't do that. It's pretty simple. Know your strengths, know your weaknesses, and always try to figure out what you're going to do to try to play to your strengths. What you envision an offense will look like, it will probably need to be tweaked or changed throughout the season. I have plenty of examples of this happening, in my head or in a coach's head. They see something and they're like, man, this would be awesome. Like I'd love to run this or do that or do this, or, we designed this system. And then you get on the court and maybe you even practice it well. And then you get on the court in a game and it just doesn't work at all. I've got an example of this I'll share later. And then also I have an example of this. We ran a spread offense first year at Cary Academy. And it was pretty bad. But I've seen other coaches and teams run it very effectively at the high school level. So just be able to know that what you think it looks like, it's probably going to change over the course of the year. So starting first off, we're going to go early offense. What do you do when you first get the ball? When you get the rebound, what do you do? What's your philosophy? Are you going to run? Are you going to slow it down? The first thing is, if you're going to run, are you going to have a rim runner, right? Are you not going to have a rim runner? We tried 1 year to not have a rim runner, and it was really bad. When we went back to the rim run, it was really effective. We had a rim runner who averaged 8 points a game just off rim running alone. So it's a philosophy thing. It's a personnel thing. But basically, if you have a rim runner and a guy who's willing to run rim to rim and you push the ball, you'll score points off of it. This past season, we were more 5 out until our big guy who got hurt, he came back halfway through the year. So we ended up not having a rim runner, and it worked out pretty well for us in early offense with space in the floor. What are your wings going to do? Are they going to run to corners, or are you going to run to layups? If you got good athletes and not good shooters, you're going to have them kind of bend in and run for layups. If you have really good 3-point shooters, you might flatten out to the corners. Is your point guard, is he a passer? Is he a scorer? If he's a good passer and good spray ahead, then you want to kind of maybe tweak your early offensive system to have him, have better passing options or clarify those passing options. If he's a scorer, then maybe you want to have your system be more where he's trying to score first and then pass second. Is your trail man, is he a shooter or a screener? If you play two bigs or two bigger kids in high school, is one of them a screener and one of them's a shooter? Are they both screeners? If so, then you're going to run more drag ball screens. You're going to run more ball screens in transition versus if your trail man's a shooter, then you can run like flip action where you're trying to look for quick pitches and catch and shoot threes in transition. Or you can slow it down or walk it up, which I'm not a fan of, no matter how talented you think you or how lack of talent you have. I think pushing the ball and pushing the tempo is always going to be the number one thing for me in any team that I coach, for a couple of reasons. One is fun. It's just fun to play. It's fun to watch. People enjoy being around. In the past, a couple of teams we had that we won, I think, we were under 500 2 out of the 3 seasons, but it's fun to watch, right? People want to come to the games because it's fun to watch. It's easier scoring opportunities, and you can execute the comeback game a little bit easier, right? You're down 5-6 with a minute left. You want to press, you want to run, you need quick scores. You're already used to running, so you're in that element. A couple of just quick basic stats. In college basketball this year, the best offensive team in the half court, so that means when they're set up in the half court and not transition, Gonzaga was at 1.03 points per possession. In transition, there was 130 teams that when they ran were above that 1.03 mark. So almost over half the college basketball teams met that points per possession mark that the best team had by running in transition. And then the NBA, every team's more efficient in transition. The best offensive team right now is Dallas Mavericks at 1.2 points per possession. The lowest team in transition is the New York Knicks at about 1.25. So no matter what, you're going to be able to find value in running. I promise, no matter what offensive system you have, just even having a break is important. Now let's talk about a few of these breaks. I'm not going to go over intense detail about what these teams do and don't do. I just kind of want to show a little bit of, like what teams like North Carolina, Michigan State, Davidson, and even Golden State do. So you can see here in the Carolina break, they have a rim runner, they have wings, and then they have trail man and the point guard. Carolina break is known for a couple things. Number one, the rim runner. So you can see them find the rim runner here. And number two, kind of getting into their secondary. When they get in their secondary, everybody probably has already seen this. When the ball gets reversed, they have the opposite wing come back here instead of back screen. They're to get this back screen lob. Now, there's multiple options out of this, but they've been running this for, 30 years, and it still hasn't been stopped. So it's just an idea to have. We played a team this year that ran that. It was super annoying to guard because it's actually pretty tough to guard at the high school level. But it's guardable if you can match up guard for guard. But if you're guard for big, it's a nightmare to guard that ball screen or that back screen in transition. Michigan State will generally run the same break that like North Carolina will run. We can see here we have a corner space, a rim runner, and a trail guy. For the most part, though, they're going to run way more drag ball screens. So you can see this high ball screen here in transition. What they'll do is look to either get a pick and pop and for a swing in their 4 out, or they'll go with a little duck in. Basically, they're going to try to center their early offense around like high-low opportunities or like ball screens in transition. So you'll see drag ball screens. You'll see a double drag ball screen, which is just two guys setting that ball screen in transition there. But everything they're going to do is kind of more NBA style concepts in their secondary break. What they will flow into, let's say they are going to set this drag ball screen, or they're just going to kind of flow into their normal offense. You'll see this have an early pin down. They run this action often. So the trailer here, like if you have a trailer who's not a great shooter, this is a great option, right? You have him trail here. He's obviously clearly left open, but he's going to come here. And now he's setting a screen, and there's going to be no help on that screen because his defender is sagging off. So that early pin down has been effective action for Michigan State for years now. Sometimes you'll see them pass ahead and pass it back and then go into it. But for the most part, you'll see the point guard just kind of like point who they want to set the screen and look for open looks. Now, Davidson runs a unique transition attack. I'm sure you've heard me and Jordan Sperber on our podcast talk about it with the butt screen, where basically as they're coming down in transition, normally trail men are going to kind of turn and face the ball. Well, they always have their butt basically face to half court, and they're going to remain like that. But they look for rim runs often. They do early threes. They do early layups. They do a really good job of pushing the ball. But the thing Davidson does a little differently is they have their point guard probe a little bit more than other teams. So they want the point guard to really put a ton of immense pressure on the defense right away and take a lot of early shots in transition. You'll see, so here's an example of like that butt screen where the player just stays kind of straight up. And what it does is it allows for easier catch and shoot opportunities. So the trail man here doesn't have to worry about any real intense footwork, right? All he does is that's a step left, right, right, left, whatever your philosophy is on shooting, and just catch and shoot open threes. So when that point guard's putting early pressure on him, you're going to see him attract defenders, and that's basically allowing for an open catch and shoot three. So if you've got a good, four-man who's trailing in transition that can shoot a lot, that's a good look for you. Now, what the Warriors do is they kind of run a lot of pin downs and cuts and a lot of their flow offense early in transition with like a big bringing the ball up the floor. So you see a pin down, dribble handoff, a little weak side pin down for Clay, catch and shoot opportunities. What they'll try to do is have their bigs push the ball and then throw it to the middle of the floor. And once the ball is in the middle of the floor, you'll see them set back screens and cross screens and down screens, lots of motion action that really catches the defense off guard. So here you see Draymond's going to set a random back screen on Steph. Steph is open for a layup. Now, NBA spacing is a little bit different, but this action here is still really applicable, especially in high school, because the defense isn't set. They're scrambling. They may be cross-matched. You may be able to get easier scoring opportunities by running some of these early in transition. You can have a call for it. You can, just let them play. But for the most part, having this sort of action and allow them that freedom in transition is really good. Okay, let's talk about some of the flow actions. Flow actions to me is just determined by basically what are you going to do behind what you already do, or what are you going to do when no play is called? What do you default into? So for us this year, this kind of goes back to it will need to be tweaked, or whatever you envision, it's not going to be that. And the reason I say that is because we had this elbow call, right? So we called it elbow. We figured, all right, we'll put the ball at the elbow, similar like the Princeton Point series. We'll throw the ball at the elbow. We had a really good playmaker at the elbow. We played as a stretch five, or throw it to our big at the elbow, and we'll run split cut action. It'll be really hard to guard because we had 35% three-point shooters or above at the same time playing with them on the court. So it's like, that'd be really hard to guard. We set it up. We run it in practice. It looked good. The flow was nice. It was awesome. And then we get into a game, and this is what it turned into. It turned into a player screening across, a player cutting over the top, and then an ISO. Now, this became our hardest set to guard, right? Because we isolate the guy at the elbow with a little bit of screening action to take the help away. But for the most part, this is not what I envisioned in my mind, right? So this screening action now just turns into scissor action, which it's good action, right? We get a bounce out on their big, he attacks, and we get a kick for an open three. But this is not what I had in mind. This is what I had in mind, right? This is the Nebraska Wesleyan. If you guys have access to Synergy or anything like that, this is a great team to look at. They run awesome offense. So Nebraska Wesleyan, they flash a guy at the elbow, they go and screen across, and they get this backdoor cut. I'm like, man, that's what it should look like. This is the split cut read, right? Hit the elbow, the guy, he curls inside, easy layup. And I'm like, man, this is great. This is what we should be doing, right? Pin down, guy gets caught underneath, you open up, catch and shoot three. We got really good three-point shooters. This is what it should be. But it didn't turn into that. It turned into, this is our elbow play for an ISO, and it was really effective for us, right? I like this option a lot. I'm going to add this option for us next year, where if the elbow is covered, this guy's going to spin, and then you trigger this, and he spin triggers a backdoor cut. They got this action a lot not this past season, the year before when I watched it a lot. But this is kind of what I'm talking about when I say it's going to be tweaked or changed, or your philosophy is going to have to be a little bit more open-minded. All right, double fist. So this was just our double ball screen play. So basically it's just a two guys setting a ball screen wherever they're on the court. Our rule for this was the first guy rolls and the second guy pops. For whatever reason in high school, that's harder action to guard. It's difficult to kind of stop, especially if your second player is a shooter. So in this scenario, team we're playing, literally everybody in the court right now is 6'5" or 6'6" for them. I think our two tallest players are 6'6" and 6'7". They're the ones setting the ball screen. A little bit of context. First guy is here. He's going to roll. Second guy is our 40% three-point shooter, really good best player, right? So he's going to pop. So when he pops, right, what it does is it freezes the defense. So they didn't know if they were going to switch. They didn't know if he was going to cover out. And what it did was open up a little driving lane for us to get downhill. think this is good action that you can call whatever you want, you know, double drag ball screen, double ball screen, whatever it was. We made it a call because sometimes we wanted to actually call it. But here we can see the first guy is going to roll, second guy is going to pop, second guy is going to be late recovering, allows a roll man to be open. So this is really tough action for teams to guard, especially at the high school level. Now let's show how we take an NBA concept and kind of turn it into again, where we need to tweak some stuff. So this is what we called 45, or you've heard ghost ball screen. I've tweeted a lot of stuff about it. But essentially what it is you're just faking a ball screen and picking and popping. In the NBA level, what they'll do is they'll do this, and then there would be like another player here on the wing who would 45 cut, or a player here that would 45 cut or backdoor cut. We initially had it like that because we run a lot of 5 out. So we thought, cool, we'll set this little kind of ghost 45 ball screen, have that 45 cut, and it'll be perfect. And what it turned into was we just eliminated the 45 cut and just started a guy off lower and ended up creating space. So this is a really deep three, but that's what, you know, he's a really good shooter, so we let him shoot that. But in this scenario here, we had the player who's going to be setting it. It just hit 3 threes in a row. So the team are going to be really concerned about him shooting, right? Well, we thought so. When they came off of this, we got 2 on the ball, and we ended up hitting a wide open extra pass, just missed it. So this was good action for us. And even if you have like a really good shooter, it'll still be open because it just creates confusion. I think Zach did a really good talk on how to guard that you should check out in these clinics. But here it just creates confusion. So we get 2 guys kind of run into each other, 2 on the ball, the extra pass. Defense does a nice job rotating. We hit a pull-up anyways. So that's how we kind of take NBA action into our play calls. Now, this is just random action. So you're going to see some really poor decisions by our guys here. We address this in film for sure. But here we're going to see 5 here is going to kind of ghost cut or kind of run underneath. That creates a downhill driving lane. Now the rule here is, right, if you have a guy in front of you, you should be kicking, right? We got 2 guys spaced on the perimeter, you know, 2 37% three-point shooters. This should be a kick read, but instead we miss a layup. Same action here. This time we got a little kind of cut right here. So again, guy helps. This should be a drive and kick opportunity, ends up just missing it. So that's how you can kind of take some different ideas from the NBA and use them. We'll talk about how we drill some of those actions later in the drill segment. And then before I forget, if you guys have any questions, throw them in the Q&A or in the chat, and I'll try to get to them at the end. And then if I miss any for any reason, you can follow up on Twitter at halfcourthoops. My DMs are open. I'm happy to talk anytime, especially because we all have a lot of time now. So continuity ideas. I get asked a lot, like, what continuities do you like? I'm not a huge continuity guy. I don't really like to run a ton of, action over and over and over again and just have it be where it's like, all right, we're going to do this no matter what. I'm not a fan. I think it's easily scoutable. The teams that did run continuity against us this past year, it wasn't that hard to guard. They also weren't very good teams, but it wasn't difficult to guard that type of action. So I just keep that in mind. That's just me. Again, this may be something for you. So let's talk about some of these continuity ideas and kind of go over them a little bit and kind of talk about what I like and what I don't like. And we'll look at these 4, but also how to kind of combine these 4 into the similar action, or if you want to run continuity altogether. So we were looking for, playing around with the idea of continuity just because we were trying to play 2 bigger players at the same time instead of our normal 4 out, 1 in, or our 5 out. So this is just what Gonzaga runs, basically, where you have a high ball screen and a duck in, high ball screen and a duck in. So you're going to see here as one comes off, he's looking to maybe score, looking for the duck in, maybe the shake action here, a little single tag action. And then if that's not there, he kicks to the corner, he clears, and then it's another side ball screen and duck in. And it just continues on from there, basically. It's just continuity. This is something that Gonzaga runs a ton of. I mean, they run it all the time. Here's an example of it. So as the ball gets reversed here, we're going to see a little side ball screen. Now this one's empty, so you can see there's nobody on that side. It's the same thing though. So a little side ball screen, player ducks in, ends up clearing out the lane, easier scoring opportunity. They run the same action here. This time they actually hit the duck in. I think this is their second unit because the score is a little out of whack, but you hit the duck in here, score. So I thought, okay, that's a good option. That's not that bad. If you don't like the duck in option, which I'm not a fan of at the high school level, it's clogged spacing as it is. But you could see them hit the porch. So you can run a little high ball screen. The players in the short corner of the porch corner, you're going to come off and basically put a non-shooter. You're going to have them in the short corner of the porch. And what it allows for easier drop off and dump off opportunities. If teams run 4 out with a big, this is a natural pass in it anyways. So that's another option if you run that little side ball screen. Now this is roll and replace action. We actually did use this season. We never actually got to the stagger. We actually just, the roll and replace action worked. We either scored off the layup or the replace action. So we never actually got to this stagger screen, but I like this one where you run roll and replace action. So you can have either 4 or 5, have ball screen, replace, and then on the replace, you hit the guy in the middle. It'll be like a duck in or like a high-low opportunity, reverse the ball, and then you run a little stagger screen away. And as 2 comes off the stagger screen, looking to either hit, post up or catch and shoot opportunity. I like to have the second screener in a stagger slip sometimes to just kind of create some confusion, because if his man is going to be the guy who is either helping or like maybe stunting, he's a slip guy. And then afterwards, you have the other big set the ball screen so it goes the other way. Because if not, it's just going to keep going in a continuous cycle like that. So you'd have the other big who is posting up be the first ball screener and then go from there. So that's an option. A lot of teams run a lot of roll and replace action. Doesn't always flow into a stagger. So I'll slow this down a little bit so we can see it. So this is the high ball screen here. If you play a team that plays pack line, this is good action against it, by the way. So here's the high ball screen. Here's the replacement. This is Villanova from a few years ago. So what this does is this takes any help defense away and allows the roll man to be open. And then flowing into a stagger makes it just, the continuity aspect of it. But again, same action here, roll, replace, and go from there. A lot of teams will run this now as just like a late clock. Like Wisconsin ran this a ton this year. As just for like roll and replace, not even as continuity. But what they would flow into is the continuity of their swing offense. So that's an option you can look at too if you're curious about continuity stuff. So here's just the roll and replace, the swing option. So you can combine this with a couple different things. So the replace guy is then going to swing instead of a little side ball screen. Then it could go into that side ball screen continuity. So this could even be like an entry if you want to run it like that. Kind of whatever you just giving you guys ideas. So Louisville ran this against UNC this year where they would swing and run a little side ball screen with the post up action, little side pick and pop. It's tough to guard, especially a pressure team like North Carolina. And I'll show in this example of what I'm talking about. So as the replace guy swings it, right, what you're going to see is this has to either be a switch or it has to be some sort of communication here, because this is going to be a pick and pop opportunity. You have to have help side has to help on that post up, and what it allows for downhill driving lanes, or if not, you're allowing the ball to get reversed easier. So it's just tough action to guard. Yale actually ran a ton of high ball screen with replace action. You see them swing right into that side ball screen. Since Yale run that Euro ball screen continuity this year as well, you can go into that as well, which we'll talk about in a couple of clips coming up here. But this roll and replace into the swing action is tough to guard. It allows, if you have a good post guy, to seal there as well. It's probably my favorite option as opposed to just having the stagger happen. Of course, you have the high-low Bill Self continuity. He hasn't done a ton of continuity lately. He's run more like sets or actions for post-up, but this is always a classic one. Most people probably know about this, but 3 out, 2 in to start. You clear, always get a high post flash, ball gets reversed, looking for the high-low opportunity, looking for the seals. As a seal happens, a stagger happens. So same kind of philosophy as that roll and replace action. But essentially, where Bill Self and Kansas kind of tweaked it now, where they'll start it out like floppy, and then they'll go into like a post-to-post exchange and then look for it. So you'll see them kind of go post-to-post exchange. Now here, normally it would be you look for the high-low, we get a reversal, and then a stagger. That's tough action to guard, just because you're trying to help on the post, you're trying to defend the high-low, especially against a team that you're overmatched with as well. What they've done more recently is they'll go into more like single down action. So instead of a stagger screen, they're going to set this little single pin down here. So you can see the paint's going to be empty. So what it does is if this guy is the help defender, normally he's going to have to stay and help on that post pin or the guy getting posted up over the top. But what it does is it takes that help away because of this single down action. So if you're worried about a shooter coming off of this, it's going to take that help away. So what they did was, I'll skip ahead here just for a little bit because Yale goes to the high-low action. But what I want to show is the way Kansas does this roll and replace. and how we combine the action. So we go roll, replace right into that stagger. So now we got the stagger screen here. We got the high-low opportunity here. And it's just a good way of showing how we can kind of combine these two things into one and kind of make it what we want. So Wisconsin again here, running roll and replace action. So you got a high ball screen, you got a roll, you got to replace, nothing's there. So you get the ball reversed. And really they just, at this point, they're just abandoned that. Now they're in their kind of flow. So they go into whatever they go into. So you see this kind of flare screen here, a down screen here, just creating some weak side action, open up for a 3. So that's how we can kind of combine these actions and to maybe tweak it to what works for your system or your identity better. Now the Euro ball screen motion has been covered ad nauseum by a lot of coaches, actually starting off with Layson Perkins. That's where most coaches know him from. And then obviously we've talked about it a lot in this day and age because most teams run a version of it in college basketball. So essentially what it is it's going to be a 5-out continuity with a side ball screen. As the side ball screen happens, the ball gets reversed in the middle, looking for maybe a high-low opportunity. When the ball hits the middle, the wing is going to either backdoor cut or screen down. Ball gets reversed, going side to side. As the ball is reversed, another side ball screen, the big that was posting up is going to exit and come to that sweet spot and clearing out the lane and basically getting the ball moved side to side. This is the offense that Virginia actually went to when they obviously got knocked off as a number 1 overall seed by a 16 seed. And then next year, what they did is they came back and ran this more than mover blocker, continuity ball screen. And what it allowed them to space. So basically, instead of having them run the continuous mover blocker, they still knew how to play. But what it does is it gets the defense moving side to side, and it provides a different aspect. So putting the mover blocker now had to scout this action. They now had to scout the side to side ball reversals. They had to they had to guard off dribble handoffs, off pin downs, any counters off of it. And it just was a good adjustment by Virginia to be able to kind of take their offense to a new level. All right, so let's talk about creating ideas. So I've talked about a lot of ideas and talk about, maybe how you can have ideas for yourself. So if you follow me on Twitter, if you follow me on YouTube already, I put out a ton of plays. I get asked all the time, my playbook must be 150 pages, and it's not. So what I'll do is how I generate ideas for myself and for my playbooks is I choose 10 to 15 ideas or concepts or plays in this off season, and I'll take those concepts with formations or plays that we already run and figure out if we can kind of mold them and make them my own or your own. So don't just take the play and run the play. Take why the play worked, take why you liked it, and try to blend that and mold it into what you already do. So for instance, I'm going to show some of my ideas that I've had for this off season. So basically coming up this next year, we return, I think out of our top 8 guys, we'll return 7 of them. So with some of our returning guys, we know how teams are going to defend us because of their personnel and who they are. So in this scenario, in this specific play, we already run 5 out, right? So we already run 5 out. So I'm trying to play out with ideas that maybe get us moving instead of just running our flow. And if we get stagnant, maybe we need to make a call or run a concept or a play. So I just called this 5 hook just because I like this hook action to start with. But essentially it looks like delay where you have 5 out like NBA, hit the big in the middle and then screen down. In this play, 4 would be like our best shooter, 40% three-point shooter, knockdown guy, really good. So he's going to intentionally curl it because most of the time he's either jammed, denied, or they're really, really hugging him and not allowing him to catch and shoot. So 1's going to open back up. Then it goes into a little side ball screen, him coming off a stagger screen on the weak side. So we're trying to take the help away, have a little 2-man game with our big guy and our point guard on the same side. Now I'll talk about like where I got this idea. So we already run 5 out, right? So I'm looking for ideas for us to play out of this 5 out. So that's where I started it, 5 out, right? Then I moved into, okay, well, what's good 5 out action that I like? I have folders separated on my computer of what I like, what I don't like, ideas, different things like that. So here we see the Pelicans kind of run that same, twin pin downs, right? Player rejects it. Anthony Davis opens up. This is obviously from a few years ago. They go into a side 2-man game. So I was like, oh, okay, I like that action. I like this little side 2-man game. I like the little side ball screen, maybe dribble handoff. Let our best player maybe play in this space. And then I saw the Warriors ran the similar action for Klay Thompson, where on this handoff, it's a stagger screen on this weak side. So I thought, okay, well, what if we have him play a 2-man game with a stagger screen on the weak side out of that 5-out hook action? And that's where I came up with the idea for this play. So I'll give you a real idea of where I come up with a play, and then you go into counters, right? So it's like, oh, okay, I'm watching the Pelicans still. Well, now they go into the handoff, and it would be a stagger on the weak side, but now we can turn this into floppy action. So it's like, oh, okay, well, there's another play that we can kind of maybe run as an after timeout counter as a special or things like that. And then you go to the next play. I'm like, okay, well, we see Vanderbilt run this similar action where they start with that little hook action, and then they go into a backdoor. So maybe we're in an after timeout. If we're getting overplay, need a basket, late game situation, I have this in my back pocket. So you can kind of take the ideas that you're getting and mold them into one thing, and then take that one thing and try and find different counters, different options out of it. Okay, I'll give you a real world example here. All right, so this is from this season. We run, this is just our horns play. Okay, so we run, it's a elbow flash, pass to one elbow, and then reverse it to the other one, and then it's going to go back screen into a dribble handoff into a triple screen, right? So we score off the handoff here, and the next example will be the triple screen. So you go reverse it, you go back screen, right? Dribble handoff, and then here we go handoff, and then triple screen, right? It's tough action to guard. It's one of our best sets. I really liked it. It was really fun to put in, right? It's fun for the kids to do too. So this is where I got this idea from. So Purdue runs this weave action into an elbow, into like a side dribble handoff, and then they go triple screen, right? I was like, man, I really like that triple screen, how it goes handoff, triple screen. It's tough to guard. And I was like, well, I also really like the Michigan State horns where they kind of set this little middle rub screen into a dribble handoff into a triple screen, right? Well, I'm like, okay, well, this rub screen doesn't really work for us at the high school level. At that point in time, our big guy was still injured, so we weren't going to even look for a post up. So I thought, okay, well, if we go back screen, dribble handoff into a triple screen, and that's how that play was born. So I encourage you guys to kind of take that information and kind of digest it for yourself. Write down what actions you like, what you don't like, what's hard to guard, what's not hard to guard. What did opponents do to you that was really difficult to guard? What are those 5 to 10 actions that you had a nightmare when you're trying to scout, and take those and put them into plays or sets that you already have. So now we're going to get into the drills of kind of like how we drill certain things and how, I guess, the progression of my drills kind of build up in different scenarios. So first one here is a split cuts 3-on-0. So we enter in the elbow or in the post, it doesn't really matter. But essentially when we run these 3-on-0 drills, we're just trying to get up a lot of shots. And this one, it depends on the day, but sometimes we'll throw a coach in for defense. Sometimes we just want to get shots up. If we've had a grueling game the night before and let them play and just get some shots up. But essentially you throw the ball to the elbow. Once it hits the elbow, the player who passed the elbow goes and screens away. The key here is on this specific one is we want to hold and wait to read the screener. So basically this guy is going to read the screener. We want him to hold and wait. So he wants to hold there and allow the other player to dictate what he does. So if he goes back door, this player opens up. If he curls, this player opens up. If he comes off in like fades or, comes off in like a normal regular pin down scenario, looks for a slip. If they're switching, we're going to pretty much always slip it just to try to catch them in that, a slip or backdoor, depending on the team. But after that, we'll have 2 players on the baseline that become passers. So if this player passes the player in the basket, player at the elbow makes the read and hits the guy coming off from the perimeter, and then the player at the elbow catches and shoots it. So everybody gets a shot. Sometimes we'll throw a coach in here and guard in the wing, and he'll dictate what the offense will do. So if he steps above the screen and he's jamming it, we'll go back door and they have to read it. Or if he's trailing, they have to curl and read it. Just different things like that. Sometimes we don't. It just depends on the day in the scenario and how I guess grueling we want them to be in the practice. But that's how we do the 3-on-0, and then we go into basically 3-on-3 live, where we'll go either out of the elbow or out of the post. We want to make this automatic, so we want to make the split cuts automatic. So in our offense, we want to have it to be basically where if it goes in the post, goes the elbow, we want to try to run the split action. And of course, like I said, it didn't really work on the elbow. It did work on the post, and we actually got some good looks off the post up. But essentially, it's just offense, defense, 3-on-3, throw the ball in the elbow, throw the ball in the post, and then split away. And then you play live 3-on-3 on one side of the floor in the post-up scenarios. And then you don't, basically there's no real rules in the elbow. The only incentive we try to do is if you score off a split cut, it's worth double. So if you score a layup, if you reject it off a split cut, score a layup, it's worth double. If you score a hit off a three, it's worth 6. So that way you incentivize the split cuts and trying to score off of those actions alone. All right, so the next one we'll go into is just we call this 45 action. So again, this is how it started out, where we have this, and we're our 5 out. We have this little 45 or ghost screen, player curls off of it, and we 45 cut into space, right? So it started off like that. So the way we repped it was we just had 3-on-0. We just had a coach here passing, a coach here passing, and then the player comes off of it is going to usually read a coach. So if we had three or four coaches on the floor, you do that. If not, then we can talk about the 3-on-3 scenarios with this exactly. But basically, we built up to dummy offense like 3-on-0, 4-on-0, and then 5-on-0, and then go 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5. Just we want to get a lot of shots up, and we also want to have some sort of like decision process at some point, because that's what the game's about. So the 45 action we would have as this player sets the screen, as soon as he crosses the threshold of like the lane line extended here, so he would come up, that triggers the 45 cut, just so that way the timing was good on it. So he would come and fake the ball screen. We hit the pick and pop. We have a coach here passing the guy who 45 cuts, so he gets a left-handed layup. And then after the passer passes, he's going to kind of fake inside, relocate to the corner, so he gets a shot too. So that's how we kind of rep the 45 action. We actually did that with all of our ball screens, the 3-on-0. So how we want to show, I guess this is what we call a shake read, where if you come off to the one side, we had a 45 cut no matter what, and we set a ball screen to clear space. The shake read is basically just reading this one defender. So you read one defender here as you're coming off, you either read the roll man or the tag man. So that's what the shake terminology is. So to create this 3-on-0, what we did was we just would have a coach would be the tag guy. So as the player's coming off of this, we had the player lift out of the corner, and we had this shake read. So basically it would be the coach dictates what you do. If he takes the roll man, you hit the shake. If he takes the shake, you hit the roll man. And then again, we'd have players on the baseline who are passing. We would pass the relocate, pass to the player who did or didn't catch and shoot, and then go from there. And then we built this up into 5-on-0, but with a lot of decisions involved. And what I mean by that is basically that you have to read almost every single thing in this scenario. So this does require, you do need at least 10, 12 players to pull this off, because it's 5-on-0. But it starts off with the normal just spread ball screen shake read. So you read the coach on the shake read. If you tag as a roll man, you hit the lift. If you tag as a lift, you hit the roll man. Okay. So no matter what, the player on the wing has to end up with a ball. So you got 2 players on the bottom here. The outside guy is going to pass to the lift man. So if the coach ends up taking the roll man or the lift man, and the point guard passes it to the roll man for a finish, right? The player on the baseline is going to kick to the guy in the wing. So we always create like the shake action guy caught it. The coach is then going to close out to either the top side or the bottom side and force them either baseline or middle. Player has to catch, read the closeout, and attack the other way. So if the coach gives baseline, he attacks baseline. The coach gives middle, he attacks middle. Okay. So then after the closeout, we have another coach on the opposite side that either takes the first pass or the corner pass or the slot pass, right? These 2 players space on this drive here. So then the player has to read who the coach is taking out, pass the other guy, or if the coach allows the pass and takes away the extra or closes out, you make the extra pass. So you simulate the decision-making of basically a drive and kick, and then you read the one more or not. This was an awesome drill for us to kind of teach, the ball screen reads, the decision making, and allow them to get a lot of shots. Everybody gets a shot in this drill as well, while at the same time not having to play 5-on-5. So like sometimes, like late in the season, we don't want to play a ton of 5-on-5, and we still want to play, but we want to get them out of that grueling environment of playing offense and defense and full court. So this was a really good drill for us to have that we really liked, and I'm going to continue to do it next year for sure. Next up, we have the Rockets drill. This is my favorite drill that I've done since I started coaching. Essentially, this became like a staple of our practices late in the year, especially. Start 4-on-4, and the offense has the advantage. So you can start in different scenarios. We usually have it start either in the slot. Just for clarification, slot is like this area. This is top. This is our slot just for us. So you have a slot, top slot. And then in this scenario, the offense has the advantage. So the defense moves when the offense moves. So the offense stops, lets everybody get set, and then attacks. So the offense has the advantage. You play out the possession. It turns into 4-on-4. When the shot goes up, so whenever the shot happens, that's when this player who's at half court can release. He becomes the rim runner. So the rim runner is just, his only job is to go and run to the rim. That's it. Okay, so the team that's on defense, the X's right now, they get the ball. If they hit the rim run, it's worth 5. So the game will go to 10. Threes are worth 3, pull-ups worth 1, layups worth 2, rim run worth 5. Now, the reason for this exact scoring is, number one is we don't really emphasize pull-ups in our offense. We don't, we don't discourage them, but the layups, threes, and rim runs are a priority. So what this game does is, number one, it works on your transition offense, right? You catch the ball. Well, what your guards and team starts doing is they look to hit the rim run as soon as possible. You hit the rim run twice, the game's over, other team's running, right? So if you hit the rim run twice, that's it. So what you first do is you get the ball, you look up immediately. You automatically look for the rim run. So that teaches your team to kind of look up and go in transition. And then you have to get back in transition defense, and now you're playing 4-on-5. So it simulates a disadvantage defensively as well. So it works on transition defense, transition offense, advantage for the offense on both scenarios. So it's just really good. And then we also, it evolves into where you go +1. So basically it's the same exact drill, same exact setup. Then we have a defender for the rim runner. And once the ball crosses half court, he can then come in. So once the ball crosses half court, he can then come in. So you play a little bit of a disadvantage, 4-on-5, and then you play 5-on-5 live from there. Same scoring, 3-1-2-5. And I can get more in details about the analytics of all this stuff, but essentially the pull-ups are still worth something in our offense, especially this year. We have 2 pretty good pull-up guys, but we want to incentivize the threes and layups and rim runs. So that's why we score it like that. Next is one of my favorite drills to run, which is chaos drill. This one is the game of basketball is chaotic. It's weird. It's crazy. So we have a couple of different chaos drills that we'd like to do where it's just kind of, it's kind of everybody goes at the same time, and it's a little bit weird. This is one of my favorite ones because it's not dangerous. Some of them got a little bit dangerous when we tried them out. But essentially you start off with 5 guys spaced out, just like our 5-out offense. You have 3 players with the ball, 2 players without, and then 2 coaches underneath for like defense, right? So we always want to teach our guys to drive to score. So when you drive to score, if you're actually driving to score, you just pretend like you're going to score no matter what's going on, right? So when these players drive, they are all driving like they're going to drive to score. And then the 2 coaches pick which 2 players we're going to stop, right? So we stop 2 players. If you don't get stopped, if the help doesn't come, right, we're simulating help coming, then you just go and finish your layup. So in this scenario, the player in the corner is going to finish his layup. The other 2 players had to jump stop and pass to an open player. And you can't just make a rule like they try to cheat it one day where they were always going to pass to their right. And it's like, you can't do that. We're trying to simulate some randomness. So what you do is you have the ball start on different positions each time. You can't pass to the same place twice. That's just an easy rule. And then it's just continuous from there. Basically, you get your rebound, next guys are up. And it was one of our better drills for decision making and kind of chaos, and it was a lot of fun to kind of to experiment with as well. But it's less dangerous than some of the ones we put in this year. All right, so let's talk about maximizing your playbook. So we have the same exact play. We can run 15 plays, but they're only 5 plays. So we have the same exact play for horns, base out of bounds, and side out of bounds. So we have horns 1 through 5, base out of bounds 1 through 5, side out of bounds 1 through 5. And they are all the exact same play, and they pretty much all start identical, especially the horns and base out of bounds. So for us in high school, a lot of teams will press up if you try to pass right to the elbow and horns. So instead of eliminating the whole fight and, you're trying to get in position and are you going to make a good pass, we just have our players start low with the blocks and flash to the elbows. So 5 would flash first, 4 would flash second. So in horns 1 passes to 5 and is going to cut through. So 1 cuts through, 4 flashes. Okay. Timing on that is important for our team because in that you're going to see that we get like backdoor counters and reads out of this. So timing is pretty important on when these cuts happen. So as 1 cuts through, you're going to see set a little, it's like flex action, cross screen, down screen, screen to screener action. So 5 reverses to 4, and then 1 sets a little cross screen for 2, and it comes off a down screen from 5. Same thing, based on out of bounds, you just flip it, right? So 1, instead of starting off high, starts based on out of bounds because you got to take the ball out. 5 lifts up, 1 hits 5, reverses the ball to 4, and then same action, cross screen, down screen. And silent out of bounds, it's the same thing. The only difference is the players don't start low. They start off high in like a box formation. It made it easier to set up this little back screen here. So the ball gets inbounded to 5, reverse to 4, little cross screen, down screen. Okay. I got video examples that we can take a peek at real quick. So this is horns, right? Hit the elbow. Player's going to cut through. Now notice, as this player's cutting through, this player's coming up. Okay, and that's key because we have a play call where if this player is being overplayed, like teams really trying to press up on us, we make this a backdoor read. So ball gets reversed, right? And we don't want to catch it too high, but I also don't mind catching it here. Under the volleyball line is our threshold on our court. I mean, if your volleyball line is a little bit higher than it, but this is ours. We want to be in the scoring area, in the passing area. We won't be too high. If they take us out of too high, we'll just run our backdoor counters. But it's this little flex cross screen with your best shooter, come off for a down screen, and he hits a fun 3. And then same thing based on out of bounds. So the player here is going to lift, right, to the elbow. Other player lifts to the elbow. Then we get to the little cross screen, down screen. And then same action, silent out of bounds, little flash, ball gets reversed, little back screen, cross screen, and then down screen. So these are all the exact same play. This is the same exact basic play, same exact action. It's easy to remember, and it's something that we're great at running because you don't really have to be, you don't have to remember 100 plays. If you remember 1 play, you can remember 3 plays. Now you can run this out of anything. So you can run this out of 1-4 low, 1-4 high, a box formation. It just depends on, if you already run some of those plays, you can already add that to your playbook. So I encourage you to try to maximize your playbook by running the same exact play based on out of bounds, horns, and just kind of get creative like that. Because we turned 15 plays or 5 plays into 15 plays. So another thing that we like to do is have series. So we have the 1 formation is responsible for basically 60% of our playbook to 80% of our playbook. So chin series and horn series this year for us. You can do a lot of stuff, but I think these are the better built-in spacing, if that makes sense. So the chin series and horn series, you have natural spacing. You have a lot of counters. A lot of programs in college and NBA run them, so it's easy to get counters out of them too as well. So we don't start with all 18 of these plays in our playbook. This year we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We started off with 5 plays out of chin and 4 plays out of horns. So we added these plays as the season went along. But if you can kind of create series, it helps your players remember plays easier. Right. So, when you're trying to come up with counters or come up with different plays, if it all starts in the same way and they just have to go to the same position each time, they don't have to remember all these different plays. They just remember, okay, I go here on this play, I do this, on this play, I do this. And that way you can set up, your order of, okay, this is how this works. This is how this works. They don't have to remember 18 different separate plays. It's just the same play, just with this tweak on it. It's the same formation. I go here. This is what I do. So you can get a little more creative with that. Another thing that it does is it kind of masks what you're doing, right? So even if the other team knows our play calls, like I like when other teams know our play calls, first of all, because it allows counters. But like if they know what you're doing, they know your play call. Like if it's one thing to know the play call, but it's another thing for the players in the court to execute that, right? So high school players, they're going to mess up. They're going to do stuff out of character because it's remember exactly what every team's doing. And if we simplify our playbook enough that we can run these quick hitting counters and everything looks the exact same, we're doing a good job disguising of what we're actually doing. So that's why I like series. I would encourage you guys to check out like football teams and football programs for help on the series, because I took a lot from a lot of football coaches of how they stack and how they kind of create their series and how they do things with their play call sheets and things like that. Definitely check out some football coaches. So this is how I set up our playbook in my head of like the priority. So we got motion concepts, any of the immediate quick hitting sets that you need. So, like that's your backdoors, your quick hitting, like late game stuff. If you need a score immediately, our chin series, our horn series, base out of bounds, sound out of bounds, and then zone quick hitters. This year, zone wasn't a priority for us. Like I said, we ended up this year, we had over 5 players who shot over 37% from 3. So like if teams went zone, like we just would just shoot threes. So it wasn't that much of a priority. But if like you have one good shooter and you're going to see zone, you're going to see box and one, you may bump up the zone on the priority, things like that. So that's how I kind of set my playbook up in my mind visually to help, the priority. So here's our offensive install, what I did this year, what we knew already or like has already been put in. So like over the summer, we go to team camp. So we put in some basic stuff. Primarily in the off season, we just work on like our spacing and maybe some of our flow actions. So just, some of the basic rules we have for the offensive spacing, the drives and the reaction to drives, maybe a ball screen or two. So that stuff we already knew from the off season. So we didn't have to really put it in. We just reviewed it. So the known installs in yellow, the first week installs in green. So that's your priority. That's like in each scenario, what you think is most important, right? So we had the horn series, chin series. We only put in, see like in the chin series, I think there I had highlighted 8 plays. We only put in 5. So, you can tweak and go from there. Zone plays, we had 5. We put in like 2. And then special situations we put in as well. So we try to get special situations as early as possible, as far as like our need score, need 3, full court plays, things like that. And then we go from there. We go second week. So we go in like, okay, so we had, I think I tracked it out. I think we had 15 practices before our first game. So that's where I kind of come up with, okay, this is the priority of first week. This is what we can feasibly put in. If you need to, we can push it back to the second week. And then third week, to be quite honest, this third week stuff, we just nixed. We didn't even put it in until, actually, we didn't put that in this season. So there's an example of kind of tweaking and making your playbook work for you. So that was supposed to be the third week. We ended up saying, screw that. Let's just get good at the first week and second week stuff, and then go from there. So that's kind of how the install looks visually for me, at least. I like to do it. And then we do it by dates as well. So I like to be very specific about what my thought process is, especially because I'm in charge of the offense. I want the head coach to know exactly what I'm thinking at all times. So I basically tell, in my mind, I put it all on paper right here so I can see, okay, day 1, 2, 3, this is what we're doing. This is the priority. This is the priority. Day 4, 5, and 6, this is the priority, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, just to make sure if we want to put everything in, we can. But for the most part, like what's the priority? What in the first 6 days do we need to get in? Like at this point right here, we should have enough offense in that we can run offense for the rest of the season and not worry about it. So that's how I kind of set up the install visually through the dates. And then here's our play call sheet from this year. Some people want to see that. I've had questions about that before. So how I set it up, this is able to fit on a note card. I should have had visual with me, but basically set up on like a 3x5 note card. And it fits in your back pocket. It's real easy to see. So we go with our flow offensive stuff. So like if we're in the middle of a game and we're after a timeout or we're at the free throw line or something, or if we're talking and we'll say, hey, let's go back to the flip action real quick, or let's go 45, let's go elbow, let's go punch, hey, the guys, the elbow touches is hurting them. Let's keep looking for that or something like that. That'd be like our flow, type offense. Sets, we have horns, 1 through 4 tango down, chin series, the point and slice are part of the chin series. Our specials, head tap, fist out, roll clear, zone stuff based on our bounds, some out of bounds, and then specials. So this left-hand side never changes. I mean, I shouldn't say that. It changes if we add a new play, but for the most part, it stays the same. This is like our playbook, right? So this is what we have available for us that we as coaches feel confident in, right? So to start the year, we only had horns, 1, 2, 4, chin, 5, keep chest, right? Point, and then point 2. Besides that, we didn't have anything. Okay, so we started off with that. Then we added fist out. Then we added slice, then we added slice 2, then we added a head tap, then we added roll, then we added clear. So we added these throughout the season, but they still stay on there. And I also took some off that I didn't feel comfortable with. So these are going to be kind of what you feel comfortable with as a coach on the left side. Right side is like specials for players. So we had Lucas, Red, Trey would be like our top 3 guys we want to run plays for. That's who on the right side, in order of like, and I'll get to this, the next clip, I'll show you exactly why I dictate it like this, but I'll know what plays are more efficient for our team and our players based on how I track that data. So we know point was one of the best sets. Chest was one of the best sets. Fist out was one of the best sets for Lucas. Flip, elbow, one of the best for Red. Trey, we knew slice two would be open because of the way that we design plays. If we needed a score, we have our plays here. Need a three, we have our plays here. And then any specials go here. Now that this part here blank, we have our timeout tracker here. That goes from like the very bottom. This part here goes for any like game specific special. So if we're playing a team and we know they can't guard double fist, we put a note of it. So we'll write like double fist, fist out, Tulsa, roll, whatever the play call is, we'll put that in like the notes on the bottom right here. So that way we can kind of, in our scouting as coaches, we don't tell the players that necessarily, but we'll, as coaches, we basically go, okay, we can run this play against this team. This worked last time, a conference opponent that they know what's coming, what's a counter we can run against them and have it there like after a timeout. So that'll go in like the bottom right corner. So the reason that I know these plays work is how I track some of our play stuff. Now, this is probably enough for like a whole nother video. I spent probably a week designing this in Excel. I did a lot of research on just like YouTube. I'm just watching how people set up different things in Excel and charts and things like that. But how we track everything, all these cells, and this is just a picture, is just sortable. So we'll have all of our whole playbook in Excel. We have all of our players in Excel. We have all the results in Excel, and we basically can look and go through. And you can go game. I go game order, so you can see like the order of like, okay, so we ran a lot of plays here. What happened? Did we turn the ball over a lot before that? You can kind of get a little bit of a sense of the game flow. But what it does is it allows me to track. Okay, we run based on outbound Chicago, right? We hit a three and we missed two. This doesn't tell the whole story, of course, right? The whole story is, we ran Chicago. He missed two. Red missed two, but he got fouled, right? How did that happen? So you got to go back through and see the film. So what I'll do is on each one of these individual, bars, is at the end on the far right here, I have the links to each set. So basically, as each set goes, I'll have links on there. So this is how I kind of track the different things with as regards to set efficiency. So I'll know which sets are best based on how often we've run it, what was our points per possession, but that doesn't tell the whole story, because what I'll do is if we know double fist, we scored 1 out of the last 10 times, right? Well, it's like, why is that? That doesn't make any sense. So it's one of our better sets. So you go back to the film and identify maybe some teaching points, maybe a cleanup, maybe something in there that you're okay, well, I can see why we aren't scoring because we're not running this right, or we're not doing this right, or the wrong player's getting the shot, or, we run it and it goes into our flow offense and our flow, whatever it is, you can kind of figure out through this, what your offensive philosophy will be with running plays. You can kind of figure out, okay, well, we need to score. I know the last 5 games we've scored 10 times off chin. Let's run chin here, or, let's set it up so we can run chin here. For Red, because we know he's hit a 3 off of this the last 5 games, stuff like that. It gets a little complex if you aren't familiar with like Excel and technology and stuff like that. So that's why I include like the exact presentation in this, but it maybe hopefully gives you an idea of maybe you can just manually track, as you're editing the film, you can manually track and say, okay, you start off with a play name. Let's say you run double fist, miss or no play run, or, it didn't work, whatever the tag is, miss, make, and then go into like the player, and then go into whatever, like with the Y, like your notes Y, and just, that's how you tag it and stuff like that. But hopefully that gave you guys some more, ideas than already. If you guys have any questions now, I'm going to get into the Q&A on here. I don't know if there's any in the chat or not, but I'll go ahead and just answer this real quick. How much film do you watch each game? What are you looking for when you watch another team building out that playbook? So I watch at least every made possession of basically, it just depends. So I watch every possession of the made shots first. So I like to see what they score off of first. So as I'm building a playbook, I basically see, okay, they've, they score more off of ball screens than not. You know, you can kind of get a feel for it. But pretty much I'd watch all the makes, and if I like what they're doing, I'll watch all the misses too. If I like, I watched who did I watch? I watched the other day I watched Wisconsin the other day. I did Wisconsin's playbook, and no disrespect to Wisconsin and their fans, I love what they're doing over there, and in terms of like the simplicity of it. But I'm just not a fan. It's just not for me. So I watched other makes. I edited it. I was done with it. I haven't really thought about it since. So that's kind of, hopefully that answers. I mean, there's not really a set number. I mean, I would say if I love the team like the Celtics, I watch every game. But I also watch pretty much every NBA game regardless. So I watch as much film as possible. I wish I gave you a clearer answer, but essentially I'll watch all of their makes and then maybe their misses after that. The things that I'm looking for when I'm watching their team, I just look to see what they do. You know, I think having an open mind is important. Specifically what I look for is like things that I can take for our team this year. Now this off season, I'm taking ideas. So I'll go through and kind of pick apart and steal ideas and say, okay, I like this. I didn't like this. I have an ideas folder. So like on my computer, let's see if I can pull it up. I'll have just like an ideas folder where I kind of go through and I'll go, okay, well, you know, maybe I like this, maybe I don't. So I have an ideas folder where I'll have it sorted into different things. So I'll have, you know, backdoors, ball screens, chin, clinic videos, downhill, horns, you know, motion concepts, things like that, to where if I'm trying to take those ideas, I'm just stacking ammo, basically. I'm just building up ammo and then going from there. So hopefully that kind of, I don't know if that helps you or not, but hopefully it did. If running is part of your pillar, high school teams can be horrible with turnovers. They are not as skilled. I actually found that to be false. You can turn the ball over. Yeah, sure. But if you look at turnover percentage, teams turnover or miss more in the half court than the full court. But it is a good point. It's something to consider. You have to be able to live with turnovers. I think that's a very good point, because it's just nature of the game, right? Like if you're playing faster, you're gonna make more mistakes and you do dumb stuff. But if you're creating more possessions, especially possessions that are high advantage, as in the sense of you are able to force the defense to not play in their half court set defense, right? Like when we were at Academy, we were at a size disadvantage like crazy. Our biggest player was 6'5", but he was a 2 guard. You know, so when you're playing against other teams that are 6'8", 6'7", 6'6", you just aren't going to do well in the half court against them, especially when they have more talent than you. So what you have to do is find any advantage you can. So if you turn the ball over in the half court, you're going to probably turn over, you know, in transition a little bit too, but being able to kind of just create the advantage is what we're looking for there. I would recommend picking what secondary break to install and what signals to the second break. For the most part, break is just kind of your philosophy, right? So like for me, we run the break just to try and score quickly, and then we just go right into the flow. You can have it to be where you can kind of maybe pick actions out of your break that you want. But for the most part, I would say it depends what level you're trying to coach at. But I would say just let them run and let them run and let them run and try and get rim run and then go wings to layups and then go trail man and then go into whatever you're going to go to next. But what signals a secondary break is essentially after the first 7 seconds, you're basically in secondary break or your half court offense for me. Now that could be other people, I'm not sure. Hope that helps. Do you have film on this stuff that you can send us as far as, yes, I tweeted out on Twitter a link to the basketball playbook. Let me see if I can throw it in the chat for you guys. All right, so let's see. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna pull this up real quick. So it's on my Twitter at Half Court Hoops. I will also pull up and just try and post the link here real quick for you guys. So that way we don't have to worry about it. But what I did was on my website, on my website, what I did, I'll just pull this up. How about that? I uploaded the PDF as well as YouTube playlist. This has unlisted videos and stuff for everything on here. So you can go through here for the film, and then you can actually download this PDF right here as well if you want. And then if this is my website, if you haven't checked it out yet. But yeah, so basically all that stuff's on there. for anybody to see if they want to see more like in detail or go back and later. And this replay will be available. I plan on posting it to YouTube, so you can have a replay of this as well. So that way you can go back and you don't have to scramble and everything like that. I know it's tough live sometimes to do that. Watching some of these clinics, I'm like scrambling for notes. But yeah, those are amazing. What have you done to get your team to be able to read the board and in-game adjustments in your offense? So the first thing is for us is film. So it says my X's and O's are amazing. What have you done to get your team to be able to read the board and in-game adjustments to your offense? So first thing's film. I meet with our point guards. We have a group chat in text message. So we have our 3 point guards, and I'll meet with them every day. So, or not every day, I'll meet with them every day. We have film. So we usually watch film 2 to 3 times a week. And what I'll do is I'll basically just say, okay, as I'm editing out the film, so what I'll do is I'll go, okay, well, we this was great. This was bad. Here's a teaching moment. And we just kind of teach throughout the year. And then we rep it. And I make sure that I'm very specific in when we're running a play, exactly how the play should look. So if your team's running a play and it's not necessarily working, that's the coach's fault. So it's like, I have to be able to make sure I understand how the play works, and then I can teach them. So basically we just rep it every day. You have to make it a priority. If you don't make it a priority, then you're never going to be able to excel at it. So if you're going to say, okay, here's an offensive playbook, here's 30 plays, but you don't make sure you don't make sure you emphasize specific things that will work, then you're not going to excel offensively. So for me, we when you see the install sheet, if we put in shin the very first play this year, that was our first play we put in. If you don't run shin efficiently and effectively in practice, then the first day you shouldn't move on to anything else, right? So make sure you tighten up the first play and then go from there. All right, what website do you use for the play sheets? For the play sheets, I'm assuming you mean the diagrams. That's Fast Model, and then I edit up them in Photoshop myself to just kind of tweak it from there. Where I coach, we see a ton of 2-3 zone, best options in my opinion. So do you have shooters? Because that's the best option. It's hard for me to just blanket statement say, okay, here's what you run versus a zone. We run, we just ran basically a simple 3 out, 2 in, ball gets reversed, run exchange, and then go from there. But honestly, without knowing your team and personnel, I don't really know what the best options are. We had, I think basically 5 to 6 quick hitters that we knew would work for our team. And then we just ran our zone continuity after that. But again, like I said, we had, really good shooters, so we didn't really have to worry about that too much. If you hit me up on Twitter, I can talk to you more directly about it, like exactly what your team looks like. But without knowing that, I would really wouldn't know. Thanks for the question. What do you like versus switch? 45 goes, yeah, we like that versus switch. Versus a team that switches everything, honestly, there's 2 schools of thoughts. You have to either make them pay by making a mistake by getting the ball moving, or pick your matchups and try to exploit those matchups. So for the most part, we will slip ball screens, slip off ball screens, 45 ghost actions are great. Honestly, it's just, you can treat it differently or you can treat it the same. We basically, team that switched against us, we had 2 really good ISO players and a couple of them were solid at it. So we just kind of let them go, and we'll continue to do that next year. Cause we had a kid who just get us a bucket whenever he felt like, so it was just kind of like, all right, well, we'll pick our poison and we'll go from there. But for the most part, we just kind of treated it the same and then went from there. I think switching defenses are the hardest things to go against, which is why if you treat it differently, it makes it, I guess, even tougher, if that makes sense. Good question. Is the roll and replace similar? It is similar to Spain pick and roll. For those of you that don't know, Spain pick and roll is, we actually ran a play with Spain pick and roll. I'll pull that up real quick. Spain pick and roll is the back screen on the ball screen. So we ran a counter to our horns 2 play, so that the play we saw with the back screen dribble handoff. we had the guard who would set the back screen or the back screen dribble handoff. It just turned into a ball screen, so it turned into Spain action. The roll and replace is similar in the sense of they get similar action, but the Spain action is where you back screen the ball screen, if that makes sense. Let me grab that real quick. All right. How many transition sets and half-court man sets does your high school team have in your system? How many do you typically run per game? So we ended up, and this is, it's a bit skewed because of at the end of the season, we always end up with more than we start with, right? So we ended up with, if we take plays, 27, we'll see those are all the same. So we probably had about 35 plays, but we start off the season with probably 20. So we don't really run a ton of transition sets. We just let them play. The main one we ran was a flip where we just flipped it back to our trail man. So, you know, that's hopefully that answers your question. How many do we run per game? It varies so much. When you play teams that aren't very good, you tend to, obviously you don't need to run many plays. When you play teams that are very good, you probably aren't going to execute those plays at a high level. So, I mean, I don't know. I would have to go back and look through some of the data to figure that out. But we kind of go for feel on basically how many plays we want to run or what play we want to run. So, I mean, I would say typically, I mean, if we have we average about 72 possessions per game, I'd probably say we run plays 20 out of the 70. I think that'd probably be a good amount. But again, it varies based on game by game and how the teams are playing and things like that. And we may not run plays, but we may tweak an offensive concept that we know a team's going to sag off a lot in the paint. We may run more, baseline drift action or something like that, just or skip action. So it just depends on that. Have you ever thought about running the double drag with the 2 and the 3-man versus the 4 or the 5? Seems like the guard-to-guard screen is becoming very popular. Yes. The issue with that is we always want to have a big in the ball screen because if for me as a coach, if I know they're going to run guard-to-guard action, we'll just switch it. It's not even a question. So for me, I always want to have a big in there. So if they do switch, we have the advantage with either a big guarding a guard or a guard guarding a big. It's really hard to say. So that's where we like the big involved in there for sure. We're looking to 5-out action this year for the very first time. Based on our returning personnel, do you have a favorite flare screen set that you run for your best shooter for a 3? We return a 45% three-point shooter that can also create as well as anyone I've coached in 12 years. So that's one of the things I actually put in my notes for adjustments that I'm making personally is we don't have a ton of flare screen stuff. We didn't really run it. So we're trying to add some for next year. Let me see if I can pull one up real quick. I think I have one out of that chin I showed you guys. All right. So you can see I've already got the 2021 ideas already ready to go. So this would be a good option, I think, for that. It was something that I just drew up where you go backdoor and then pass to the wing. And then you have your 5-man come and set this little quick flare screen. And then you can run a little ball screen or have him maybe attack off of that, just a quick flare option. Then I threw this in there if the flare was denied. That what you could do is you could have 5 go to the elbow and then run that elbow split cut action. So that might be a good option for you. But essentially it just depends on what you run and what you do. I don't really know exactly what you do. So,
Coach, could you share your screen on that one? I didn't see the diagram.
Yeah. Can you see it still?
Not yet. Still seeing the building offensive playbook.
How about now?
There we go.
All right, cool. Yeah, so this is what I was talking about, where you dribble over, he goes back door, hit the wing, and then a little quick flare screen from 5. Then you can go right into the elbow action here, where if that flare is denied, go into the elbow action there. Cool. What was your team's point possession this year? Overall, we were at about 1.1, which was pretty good. If in transition, we were at 1.4. In half court, we were about 1 or just under 1, I should say. And then I don't know the exact ones for sets, but my points per possession this year was about 1.1. Your high school playbook is thick. What was the execution level? What is an install timeline, practice schedule, all offense on install days? Nope. Okay, so the execution level, it should always be high. There's no reason for it not to be high, I guess, if that makes sense. So basically, if the execution level of 30 plays is not high, we'll go down to 10 plays. So we'll go down, even lower than that. So basically for me, I always want to take the first play, right? So you take the first play, what you want your best play to be, and run that the first day. If they're not running it good or at a high execution, 5-on-5, live, even when the other team defense knows the play is coming, we're just going to keep doing that until we get that right. So once we get that right, we get it going. So in every practice, we basically will have a 30-minute window for offensive execution. It usually takes us 15 minutes a day for the first 2 weeks to get the whole playbook mastered. But that's because we're the kids we coach are pretty smart right now. If you don't do that, then it just depends. So for me, I don't really have a very specific timeline of practice schedule, right? And we don't do all offense on install days just because there's an offense and defense. We want to be better on defense than we are on offense anyways. So we do it basically where we take 15 minutes of our offensive installs, all reps of our stuff that we need to cover in priority. So if we know we got chin down, we'll go to like chin 5. If we know we got chin 5 down, we'll go to like chin point. It just depends on what we're doing. So it just varies, but I don't ever go all offense or anything like that. Sometimes we do an all zone day where we go all zone offense and all zone defense. Where like if we're putting in a zone defense and our zone offense stuff, we may do that. But for the most part, we try to vary it, through that. So 15 minutes of installing those plays, 15 minutes of like our driving kick kind of motion stuff, and then 15 minutes of like our bingo flow motion, decision-making type stuff. Do I filter which sets you will play for each game? Yeah, for sure. I will filter every set. So the question is, do you filter which sets you will play for each game? Yep. If I know a team's playing a different style of defense, I know we'll throw in different plays at them. Just because, for me, it's every team's different, against the better teams, you got to run your best plays. Against the worst teams, you can experiment a little more, some different after timeouts, some different plays. Typically what we'll do is we have our playbook done. And then if we know we're going to beat a team, right? Like second game of this season, we knew we were going to beat them because of our scouting. Like we just knew they weren't as talented as us, right? So, we talked about it and said, hey, look, let's see if we can put in a new play and see what it looks like. We put it in on 1 day notice. Let's see what it looks like. And so we ran it, and it became our best backdoor play of the year. So it's like, we see more of what you can do in those type of games where you're going to win. You can kind of play around a little more. But for the most part, when we scout a team, I'll go through of how what the other team's offense, so the team that they're playing, is doing against them, what works and what doesn't work. And then I'll dictate what sets, like we always highlight, what sets are the best. So let me see if I can pull this up real quick. Give you an example. All right. So, scouts. Okay, so here's a good example. Can you guys see Microsoft Word? Layson, can you see that?
Yes, sure can.
Okay, cool. All right, so this is what our scouting report would look like, basically, where this is for the coaches. We don't always give all this information to the players, but this is what our normal scouting report against the team would look like. So for us, we have their personnel, we have what they do on offense specifically. So like this is their offense. If we get into a foul game, we know the free throw shooter's the foul. That's just for coaches to know. I'll usually throw that on my play call sheet just to have. And then they have their defense of like what type of defense they play. So like they stay low on the ball screen, they are in good position, but they'll break down to 3 reversals. They're lazy in transition, we can run on them, right? They based on a bounds, they'll play man or play zone. They play a 2-3 zone and a 2-2-1 press. They'll trap right after half court. So I know what they're gonna be doing from a defensive standpoint. So our sets and play calls will be changed every single game based upon this. So man-to-man chin, slice 2, double fist point, right? Zone, Tulsa, and so on and so forth. But against a team like Leesville, right, we changed up our man plays just a little bit, right? So Actually, that's not a good example because they run the same exact thing. Let's do Wakefield. Right. So these man calls are different against different teams. So here, these man calls on the right are going to be double fist, elbow, head tap, strong, chin, keep, right? Whereas against this team is chin, slice, slice two, double fist, point, right? And so on and so forth. So based on the type of team we're playing and the different, how they play, we'll change up the play calls each game based on that. That's mostly for coaches to know anything like that. I'll be able. What I'll do is I'll put the spreadsheet on my website after this. Let me make a note of that. You always have to have notepads, by the way, and if you don't have one, you have to have two. All right, spreadsheet on site. All right, cool. I'll upload that to the site, and I'll tweet out a link to that. Do that. How do I decide which actions fit my personnel? So essentially what I'll do is you just got to go through and know your players. So we have right now as a staff, we're building up scouting reports on all our players that are coming back. We know what their strengths are. We know what their weaknesses are. We know what they can do. We know what they can't do, right? So what we do is we just kind of filter out and take what they can do and then go from there. So for the most part, we didn't have strong post-up guys because of our big guy was injured until halfway through the year. So we were like, all right, well, I'm not going to run a post-up set because we know that's not our strength. So we kind of look at, who we have coming back, who our best scorers are, time and score situations. And then we say, okay, this would be the best thoughts for our team. But honestly, it's you just have to know your players off the court, on the court. You got to know exactly what they're doing at all times and build that relationship with them, because then you'll know what actions will fit them, if that makes sense. All right. Mentioned my material is shareable. How can we access these files for use? Thanks for your insight. I threw them in the chat. So if you're in the chat or on Twitter at Half Court Hoops, I have them on there. What is the most useful feature of Synergy that you use? Honestly, man, I don't really use Synergy like that. And I'll show you why. So if you guys can see, if you can't see VLC, the building an offensive playbook, let me know. I should be sharing that screen that you should be able to see on there. And the reason for that is, let's just pull up. Okay. So I'll pull up this play right here. Okay. So if let's say I'm watching a game film, right? I just put film into VLC media player, which is what this is called. Okay. And they have a function here that you can record the clip, right? So I'll go through and watch full games or have clips in here that I can edit out super quickly. So for the most part, I don't really use Synergy like a lot of coaches use Synergy. The most useful part for me is I get easier, quicker access to the games. That's it. That's really the most useful part for me personally. And if you guys are curious, this is the backdoor play I was talking about. So this team hard hedges. I knew that they would be, and then they pressure up more on the weak side. So I knew they'd be vulnerable to this. But we run this little quick backdoor play and get a little backdoor dunk out of it, in case you guys are curious. So that became our best play this year, and that stemmed from us kind of scouting and tweaking and playing around. Do I have a PDF of my drills for breakdown? They're in the PDF on my site. I can do one for just my drills if you want. If you just tweet me or message me on Twitter, I'll get it to you. What program do you use to create Playbook? I use Fast Draw. That's what this program here is pulled up. It's Fast Draw Basketball. Everybody should use Fast Draw. I don't work for them, but everybody should use them. Coach, previous session talked about scripting plays to start a game in a previous presentation. Agree? If yes, to what extent? Sure. Yeah, do what you want, man. I don't really have a personal opinion on it. We usually just do the first play because so what'll happen is you'll have, let's say you want to run first 5 plays. You want to run like chin 5, horns 1, horns 2, and then like chin pistol, right? Cool. The ball gets tipped. 3 possessions go by and you haven't been able to set a play yet because you've been running, and all of a sudden they're like, well, we're supposed to be doing an offense. They'll forget the plays you're supposed to run. So I don't think you need to script it. I think you can just call them in a game. But I had no problem about scripting plays. We usually script the first one because we know what kind of defense they'll play. So we try to start off with the score. But for the most part, we just kind of let it go from there, just because usually 3 possessions into the game, the ball is rolling on the floor and then we're running in transition or we're not set up or something weird happens. So we personally don't script. How much time do you spend on the sets during practice time, and dilemma of lots of sets versus players making plays? We spend, 15 minutes, 5-on-0, just kind of repping them. And then we'll spend, when we go 5-on-5 live, we usually play games for 20, 25 minutes in practice, and run them against our defense. So the guys already know what they're doing. Then it goes into players making plays. So, for the most part, we'll probably spend 15 minutes on 5-on-0, and then go 20 minutes live, where we'll call plays and have them run different plays, different scenarios, things like that. And honestly, if you do your job skill development wise in the off season and in season, the players making plays, I think you'll find a balance of in game when to call play, when not to call play. If you need more plays, like next year, we probably won't have more plays than we have this year because we have 2 studs coming back. So it's like, maybe we'll let them go a little bit. But for the most part, you just got to kind of, it's coaching is an art of that, and I don't have a problem if anybody wants to let players make plays and run 3 or 4 plays. That's fine. I mean, it makes it easier to scout, but that's why I try to do it in series. So like, we're not overloading them in terms of like their brain. European basketball, what are your favorite sets and favorite coaches? I like what Real Madrid and CSKA Moscow run. I haven't delved into nearly enough European right now. That's usually a summer project. Right now, everybody's kind of in summer mode, so I haven't really got them yet. I'm still working on the NCAA tournament playbook, so I'm delving in a lot of NCAA teams. But I like what Barcelona, Real Madrid, those, Fenerbahce, those are all good, but I don't really know enough outside of like the popular ones to really say anything more than that, unfortunately. I will, however, have a lot of them coming out this summer. So pay attention to my Twitter feed, my YouTube feed. What are some of the analytics that you look at? Also, how do you calculate these stats at the high school level? Thanks. So we just look at our points per possession per play, or like type of action, right? So if what happened was this season, I did some of the stats and analytics on the Excel sheet that I said. And what I noticed is like when we ran a half court set, we were at like 0.6 points per possession. But if we ran our flow offense, we were like 1.2. I was like, this is insane. So what it did was it make me take a hard look at what we were doing offensively and why they weren't working. And honestly, half of just missing shots. Like we ran a hammer play this year 12 different times and missed the open corner 3, 11 of them. So it's like, it's all contextualized, through film. But primarily what we'll do is what we look at is, let me see if I can pull this up for the exact stats. We just do the 4 factors. So we'll do the turnover percentage, the offensive rebounding percentage for us and our opponent. That's really important. Don't lose that. Let me see if I can pull this up so I can show you how we track it. So we just use Google Sheets, and then go from there. There we go. All right. So you guys should be able to see that now. So we do turnover percentage, effective field goal percentage, offensive rebounding percentage, and then free throw rate. These are the 4 factors from that are basketball analytics. So we can go game by game by game by game. This isn't the updated one. So basically what we'll do is we'll have that, and then we'll have the result of like different ones, and so we can kind of see what we have and what we don't have. So those are the main ones. And if you look at that, I mean, they're all over the internet. I just Google 4 factors of basketball and you'll see it right on there. So that's where we kind of do. We just basically take the basic stats and then plug them into the Google Sheets, and it does it all for you because the formula is already filled out. And if you want more information, I can send you that. Just message me on Twitter. What are the best ways to set up your playbook for your players? Can they see them as well? I don't give them the playbook, just because I just don't. I don't know. They don't need to know it. They can figure it out on the court. Court teaches more than I think looking at it. If a good test is ask your players. Just I do this all the time. I'm gonna go to the whiteboard and drop a play. Drop horns 1. Drop horns 2. Right, and it's like, they don't even know how to draw a basketball play. So reading them is difficult. So what we'll do is we just basically, if they ask for them, I give it to them because some are better than others at it. But for the most part, it's just basically hey, this is what we're putting in today. Here's what it looks like on the court. And then we'll go 5-on-0, right? So chin 5-on-0, and then we'll go chin 5-on-5. So we can show different ways of who we're screening, where we're screening, and things like that. And then we'll play. Hopefully that helps a little bit, but I don't prefer showing them the playbook now. All right. What's my best set for an athletic 4? Oh man, I mean, are you looking for a lob? Are you looking for a backdoor or downhill? This is a pretty simple one that we got. So I like this one. If you go 5 out and you have your 4-man here or your best player here, you just reverse the ball and go a little double gap and have him just drive downhill. I mean, it just depends. I mean, you can run the same thing in 4 out too, where you backdoor, dribble handoff, reverse it, and just create a little double gap. If you're looking for a lob, I mean, it just depends on what you're looking for. Again, hit me up on Twitter, and I can get in more detail what you're looking for. Jonathan, able to share your favorite flare screen set? We have a knockdown shooter returning that we love flare screen. I hope you were here for the 5-out flare, but I'll pull it up again. That would be this one right here, just 5 flare. All right. How do you go about working on counters against opposing team sets? For the most, how do you go about working on counters against opposing team sets? Like, you talking about defense? How do you go about working on counters against opposing team sets? For us, counters are pretty easy. We just add one tweak to a play we've already run 100 times, so they kind of get it. If a team runs a counter, you get to talk on the court, man. That's what defense is, So I don't know if that's what you're looking for. If you want to clarify, or if I answered it, hopefully I did. During season, what percentage of time is watching film is spent on your team, upcoming opponents, other levels? I would say 70% of my time is on my team and my upcoming opponents. This year was a little different. They launched the NFHS network in our area, which means everybody in our conference and around us recorded the games and streamed the games online and have them saved on there. So I was able to record every game of like our opponents. So I had like 15 to 20 games on each team we were going to play in conference. So this year was definitely way different. So I was able to watch. I knew what they were doing when they brought the ball up the court, which was fantastic and is awesome. I mean, our games are on there too, so it's fine. So I focus on us first on our team. So I'd probably say 50% of the time is watching our game film back, watching, like editing our film, figuring, because we'll basically play a game. We have film the next day. So I edit the film into like our good offense and our bad offense, our good defense and our bad offense. And then I'll watch our opponent's game coming up, any scouting work I have to do. If I can go to the game, I'll go to the game, at least one, try to get some play calls in game. And then after that, I mean, my job is to watch film. So when I say I watch, 10% or 20% or 30% of other levels, NBA and college, and that's still probably 6 hours a night I watch film, just because it's my job. I run my business full time, thankfully, with great support from, you guys and some people out there that are my members. So, I mean, I still watch a tremendous amount, but I would say I prioritize my team, and then I prioritize the scouts, and then I prioritize other levels. I'm extremely competitive. I don't like losing. I don't like being unprepared. There's not a worse feeling in this world to me when it comes to coaching basketball, because obviously there's other things going on, that I hate than being unprepared for a game. Like, first game of the year, oh, I dread it, man, because you never know what the other team's going to start doing or like change something, or, I just hate it. So, so that's kind of my philosophy with that. Does your team run a lot of Iverson plays out of your sets to get your players in the move for a lot of mismatches and one-on-one? No, but we will next year. So the question involved Iverson plays. No, we did not run. We tried one this year. It sucked, so we got rid of it after one game. But we're gonna do some stuff next year for it. So I don't release that information publicly. Have I ever run Iverson sets within your system for your best player or to get shooters open? No, I haven't. It's just something we haven't done. But like I said, we'll be doing this year. So you can be on the lookout for that, but I don't share that publicly. All the stuff that I'm going to run or do next year will all be private. So, Well, it won't be private after next year, but what does your in-game note sheet usually consist of, or is it the same as what the head coach uses? We just print out that same sheet, the play call sheet that I posted in the video. I tried to do some charting in a game on like a clipboard and like go through that, but man, it sucked. It took me out of my mental headspace. I wasn't able to call great plays. I just wasn't able to focus or think. I just didn't like it. But we just print out the same thing for all the coaches. Cause I mean, we're on the same page, it's not me just doing whatever I want. It's me going, hey, here's an idea for this week. Here's how they do it. Send them the scouting report. They send me their scouting report. And then we collaborate on what we're thinking and whatever he decides. So yeah. Thoughts on running 5 out, big trailing offense. If your 5-man is not very skilled, would you switch traditionally 4 out? I would probably switch to a 4 out if my big wasn't as skilled. Yeah. Just because you can always have him flash to the high post or elbow if you want him handling it. But if he's not very skilled, I would tell him get his butt in shape and rim run every single time. For a high school program that uses huddle for self-scout and preparing for opponents, would synergy be? I don't think synergy would be, no. For the most part, huddle and crossover that I've had experience with give you enough information to digest that. The only way synergy would be adding anything would be just easier like play types. But I mean, you can watch, it takes like an hour to watch the whole game and edit it for me. That you could get that good at editing out like plays and things like that. All right. If your 2 best players are more traditional post players, what actions would you focus towards? Cross screen, down screen, maybe some mover blocker, ball screen. The Euro ball screen continuity would be great for traditional post. Roll them in the post and do that. I would work on just posting them up, man. If you like it is, don't overcomplicate it. If your best players are guards, run a guard type offense. Your best players are post players, post them up. You got to go with what your strengths are. That's why very beginning, it's like, know your strengths and do that. Know your weaknesses and don't do that, So I would run 5 out if I had 2 very good post players, but I don't. So I run 5 out. All right. Well, that's all the questions in the Q&A. If you guys have anything else, let me know on Twitter at Half Court Hoops. DMs are open and we'll go from there. I hope you guys took something away. Have a great night.